Welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. I am talking to somebody today that I have wanted to talk to for years. I cannot believe it is finally happening. She is part of one of my favorite shows on Bravo since its second season in 2018. She is a fiercely loyal friend, someone who can have her own business and still party harder than most anyone around her. We've watched her put her romances on screen for better and worse, and now is not only the star of the show we're talking about today, but also Bravo's Winter House. Plus, she has her own app, the Dawn app, which we might talk about. She is from the hit show Summer House, airing every Thursday on Bravo. The one, the only, Danielle Olivera. Danielle, welcome to the show.
I feel like I need a clap for myself.
You should clap for yourself. Clap for yourself.
Loved it.
That's been pent up in me for years now. I've DM'd with you before, and I've always wanted to make this happen. So thank you for making time for us today. We are now into the second episode of Summer House, which I watched this past week. Have you watched the second episode, Danielle?
Yes, I have.
Wow. It really gives a lot of perspective and clarification, or kind of what we're about to see, because this season, a lot of people are like, oh, we know where it ends because of Carl and Lindsay, but how do we get there? And also, how does your relationship with Lindsay potentially heal? Because we do know that there is some sort of friendship potentially rekindled, because we know you've been there for her so much. Before we get into any of that, what's it like for you coming back into this season of Summer House, coming off of things like Winter House? Where was your mental state coming in this season?
So, I mean, I hadn't watched Winter House yet. All right. At that point.
There we go. Okay.
We filmed in March, and then we started Summer House right at the top of July. And so I was coming off of like what I thought was a great Winter House season. That joke remains on me. So I was like on a high. I'm like, I did a great job over there. I'm about to I'm single. Like, let's do this. I was riding a wave. And there was that moment, the second weekend, where we knew that Lindsay and Carl were going to come, and that anxiety kind of just started. Like, I was just like, I think I say no amount of rosé is going to make this anxiety go away.
I mean, you can try, but yeah, no amount of lover boy can make this go away. Yeah,
correct. And I tried both at the same time sometimes. But it was, it was a lot to go into. But I was excited to see where Lindsay and I might land.
I mean, that's the thing that I think we can all relate to, is that nervousness is when you have a friendship potentially on the decline, which we saw last season, that nervousness of where is it going to be? And I think the whole house, it seemed like, felt nervous of what the vibe that Lindsay and Carl come in with. And you had this stellar first weekend where everybody kept overusing the word vibes, that the vibes were great. But also, I mean, okay, so I will say we have two new guys, and I got to tell you, this is the strongest pack of guys we've had in the Summer House in a long time. We have West and Jesse Solomon. We have to say both of his names. What was your take on both of those gentlemen after the first weekend and then throughout the season?
West just made such an awesome first impression. I think immediately he felt like a relative of mine. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just so great. And like, he put everyone's guard down. He was like, the energy was just unmatched. And then Jesse Solomon came.
And then he's tall, you guys. Jesse Solomon's tall, and he has really white teeth.
And they're very different, but they both brought that like really fresh, young, fun energy. And then like the guys loved it. We never needed men more, because it was just like, I hate to say the vibe, but the vibes were just so great. And it was because of those two. And I think the guys really enjoyed it. I mean, Carl, Kyle, like, I think they've always wanted like more of like a guy group. Yeah, they got it.
Well, I love that Carl always feels threatened potentially by height. You know, we see a height off immediately. And I mean, I think Carl won by a little bit of hair, but I think this is so interesting. What I love about the show is that you keep coming back to this Summer House, obviously, but the relationships change every season. One of the relationships we already see in these first two episodes, I think everybody's eyes are on Carl and Lindsay, but then you have the relationship between Amanda and Kyle. It comes off very tense in these first two episodes. Is this misdirection, or is it really this tension filled with them? Because I always think like, oh my God, they must be great. And then we watch the show and it's like, are they on the edge of disaster?
It's so real. I think that they might wait to talk about their marriage until summer. I'm
Yeah, that's it
like,
exactly. Do they wait to have these hard conversations in the house?
yeah, like they live and work with each other, so they obviously conversate. And but I'm just like, wait, so all of a sudden, I think that what happens with our house is like there's a lot of questions that are asked, like, you know, are there going to be kids in the future? When are you going to stay in the city? And so I think there was a question that was posed, and Amanda was like, I'm ready to move out. And Kyle was like, I really want to stay. And so all of us were kind of just like, oh, this didn't come up at home.
Yeah, no, I mean, a couple questions about the actual house itself. Do they not give you guys air on purpose to build the tension up? Because it seems like everybody is hot as balls in this summer house. And is it because of the filming you have to turn the air off?
No, it's the house itself, this one in particular. So I lucked out because the way that my room is positioned, I have like control over it, and the sun is not hitting me as much. When that sun hits most of the other bedrooms, it's like a sauna. And so I pick correctly. Always.
Okay, good. I just always wonder, like, are they doing like war techniques with you guys to like really amp up the misery potentially?
No, we do our own.
So we see you actually be very friendly with one of Wes' friends in tonight's episode, or this is going to come out on Friday. Obviously you are single and ready to mingle at this point. Do we see any Danielle romances this season on Summer House?
Define romance.
Okay. Do we see any Danielle hookups on this season of Summer House?
Yes, you do.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. And it seems like, listen, you were like, I was like, is it going to be Wes' friend? Is he going to be a recurring character now? Are we going to see you meet people on the town? Like, are you going to bring in people from the Bravo sphere into the Summer House?
Definitely not that third one, for obvious reasons currently. So there'll be another one that just, you know, happens to be at the house, and so hot.
It'd be great if you were like real ugly guy. We really hit it off though.
I just was really focused on more of, and again, I did the same thing in Winter House, so I thought, but more of like vacation, flings, fun, and just focus more on myself and my business than anything else. That's the priority.
Well, that's the crazy thing too, is I watched you in Winter House and it's like Kyle has a little bit of this too, is that you party so hard and then you're the first one up, cleaning up, doing your work. This seems like it's always been you. Have you always been this person that you're like, I can kind of do it all? And as you get older, are you feeling the wear and tear of all that? Because when I talked to Kyle last year, I was like, how are you continuing to do this, dude?
I think it's just something that's within us that we like to just, it's productive. Like, so either we're productive at work or we're productive in a house, right? So like, we're going to take every single minute and make it count. And if it means cleaning up so that we could party again, we're going to do it.
So we can party again, go do it. Well, I mean, you talk about productivity. If you were to rate this season, what do you think, looking back, what were you productive on this season in the Summer House?
I guess really leaning into my bad bitch era. Like we like started off the season, like making sure we had our different eras and what we're going to like want to do. And I really sometimes made it about myself, kind of just like was a little bit selfish. Definitely did a lot of good work on the guy front. So
good work on the guy front. I had a really good review on the guy front. So that's good. We had a good meet. No, I always think with you too, is that we always all said as an audience of like, this is the best friend that you could ever have. You need this person in your corner. You know, it was so good that Lindsay had you there on certain seasons when I felt like a lot of the Summer House really didn't see how she was as a person, and you always did. And then of course, last season happened, and I always think of like you finding your voice. Sometimes you're going to trip within finding that voice because you're not used to doing that. You're used to fully being in support. Well, you're used to fully being in support of someone else.
Yeah.
So when you actually stand into that light yourself, it's like you're having superpowers, but not knowing how to use them, you know, so it can get messy sometimes. Is that how you view it as well?
100%. Because I get myself into trouble, but my intention is not to do that. Like, and the words sometimes don't come to me quite the way that they should. And I am pretty articulate in other people's situations, and I could be reasonable in a lot of situations. When it comes to myself, there's a certain irrational factor that happens, and I don't know how I cross those wires so much, but it does happen. I think this season also, it was so hard with mine and Lindsay's new friendship that I found myself really wanting to like be there for her, but like reminding like, okay, maybe I have to set these boundaries and keep to it. So there's kind of like a push and pull. Like I want to be there for her. I see something happening, but also I kind of really want to focus on myself and this new friendship. It was difficult sometimes because she was upset and I didn't really know what was going on for the first time. I usually know first.
Yeah. And that's got to be like that itch you can't scratch because you don't want to go too far with her and try to, ingratiate yourself back into that drama, because also this has given you an opportunity to meet the other women. And sometimes, listen, I watch these shows like a sporting event. I'm not a sports guy, but I consider these my sports. So sometimes I've been like, Paige is poisoning everybody against Lindsay. And like, I like Paige. I think she's really funny, obviously super successful, but now you're able to actually, they brought you into their friend group. And I was like, this better be for real. And they really like Danielle and they're not just using her. These are the crazy thoughts that Bravo fans have, Danielle. Like, how do you feel being in those situations?
I feel similarly because I really want to make an effort with the girls, but sometimes it's really hard to break through. I find myself, it's easier for me to be around Gabby and Lindsay because I don't know what it is. It just feels more natural, to be honest with you. Sometimes with the other girls, it could be a little bit, hard or less approachable. And I feel like I have more in common with Lindsay and Gabby on certain levels.
Yeah, there's a comfort level. And I think sometimes you seem to have that with Kyle as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, the first few nights, they don't show a lot of it. They cut a decent amount out. But Gabby, Kyle, and I, and West, we were out till like 3 a.m. most nights. And so
wait, how much extra do I have to pay for this footage? I'll give Bravo like $10 extra a month or something. I would like access to the full Summer House footage.
Yeah, it was because I can't show it all, but it was really, really fun. And I think the other girls, like, they just don't, they're not interested in going out. They just don't, they don't like to do it, but it's just such a favorite thing of mine that, like, well,
that's what we're used to seeing on the Summer House. That's kind of part of it. We like that little footage where you go out and about and we see the club lights and drinks. And then I like you guys stumbling into the Summer House past all the packages out front. That's very exciting for people. But even Paige, like, listen, on the first episode, Paige got you guys all in bed. Paige, guys, you all were in that. I was like, this is like a virus she's spreading with everybody in bed. Okay. And
in this season, though, you will find the bed bugs, whatever we'll call them, they started going out with us. I think because of Wes and Jesse, they were kind of just like, well, now we'll have FOMO if they're out with them too, and they're not here with us. So I think that was another great factor of Wes and Jesse, that they were like, okay, you guys have to come. Like, why?
Yeah.
So they're like,
I think they're great casting. Like, they really bring out kind of like, so far, I mean, like, West is kind of my favorite. You're right. He said he reminds you of family. He reminds me of one of my best friends. And I think he reminds everybody of somebody. Speaking of that, West is not really gunning for, but there's like some Sierra flirtation that he's hoping to have. But like, Sierra's like, I've done funny. And by the way, I want to say Austin, I don't think is funny. He's just tall and he's personable. But this West is funny. Do we get potentially a Sierra West hookup? Or do we get a Sierra Jesse hookup? Are you allowed to even hint at this?
Let's just say it's West all the way.
Okay, good. Good.
But honestly, it was so refreshing and so nice to see Sierra in that way, like flirting, thinking about a guy, because in seasons past, she's like very much like, nope, not happening. Not this, like, not over here. And so to see her, I was just like, this is fun. Like, she's like, she's interested. She's into it. So I love.
Well, it's interesting. That's why I like when they do bring characters back, because you get to see the natural evolution of somebody growing up and being on reality television and what it does to you. Reality television, you couldn't have expected this to be your life at this point, even though you do run your own business and stuff. How has this helped you and how has this hurt you in your life? Like, I was wondering, in terms of, like, you are a businesswoman, has this helped or hurt that aspect of your life? And what has this all added to your life?
So it's added so much because of the platform and just like being able to talk to people in my DMs and people who relate to me, people who look like me. Like that to me is just the most special thing. When it comes to the downside of it, it hasn't, like, I mean, I worked in corporate America while I was filming. So, and I wasn't fired, I quit. So it never hurt me professionally in that way. And now starting my own business, the only thing it would do is it hinders my mental health. So
that's it. Yeah.
Especially with like the fallout from Winter House, like November was the worst month. It was such a down month because people were just so mean. And when I have that much anxiety, and it was depression as well, my work suffers because I wake up later, or I don't want to get out of bed at all. It's hard to get into the swing of things. And even my team, like they understand, but we lose momentum when I'm not fully there.
Yeah, no, that actually makes so much sense. I just didn't know if you went into meetings and they were like, why did you have that conversation with Carl last season? Like, I didn't know, like, no. But you know, like mental health is such a huge thing. And I think it's so interesting that you guys get to actually watch yourself back on these things and potentially recognize patterns of behavior where the rest of us poor fools have to go to therapy. And like, but you said like you came out of Winter House and you thought all's well, you know, like, man, what a season. And then you watch it air and that really does have to potentially affect things. Have you learned things about your pattern of behavior from this show? And especially when it comes to men, because I was screaming at the screen in Winter House, don't hook up with Alex. What are you talking about? This guy is not there for you. Yeah. Watching this back, do you realize anything about yourself in that sense?
I guess I trust people way too easily. With Alex, you know, he would say something to my face and we were really hooking up all the way to the end. It just was portrayed and he made it seem like to other people, especially, that we were not. So it was very hurtful to me. And I acted out on that, which I, you know, did a poor job of, you know, handling myself well, but it was very emotionally charged, not because I was interested so much in him, but just the disrespect of it all. So I think being overly trusting in other people and maybe just like, I hate to say pumping the brakes when it comes to these romances or whatever they are, and just kind of take a breather. That is what because like my pattern of behavior, like I'm always going to want to be respected in any sort of relationship, even if it's a fling. So, you know, but I didn't like seeing myself seem desperate because that's not the case. And so I don't want that to come across because that's not how I feel. That's not who I am.
Yeah. Two more things. I wish I had a whole hour with you because I'd love to get into your past, how you were raised, all that stuff. So I'm sorry to not ask all those deep
questions. I would
questions.
make a lot more sense if we got into that.
No, but like that's what I always love to like actually find out all your origin story. But so I'm sorry that I don't get to talk about that stuff. But I do want to get back to Lindsay and Carl because in tonight's episode, we obviously see the very end and we see Lindsay, you know, obviously we don't have this footage of in the van when everybody is saying that she turned on Carl and said, and "Oh,
the girls were in a different car too." So I was
you didn't see that
myself. I'm like, what happened in this car ride? I only know her side of it though, which you know she thought he was being dismissed or not heard, or that he wasn't like being very affectionate, maybe more cold.
But to levy an accusation of potential drug use, especially when that is the person closest to you, I'm always so Team Lindsay, like from the jump. But that was a painful moment, I think, to watch, and for potentially everybody, because if one thing I think we can say about Carl, regardless of how he broke up with Lindsay, is that he's very proud of his sobriety. So that's the one kind of thing of like, what an accusation to put on the cameras above anything else. And we even see that next morning of Lindsay coming in and Carl going like, I will talk to you. You're the one that's probably a little hungover. What was that like for you to watch back? Having not been in the van, you don't get to be there in their bedroom, but now you watch it back. What is your initial feeling when you see those things?
And also on top of that, I was kind of removed from the relationship because I was still rebuilding. Yes. I wasn't trying to find out any information. You weren't at the door trying to like put your ear to the door. I was like, I heard there was a fight, but like I didn't know the extent of what was going on behind those doors or even at the club, to be honest. What I didn't like is that the next morning she kind of doubled down on the stance. It's one thing to say it when you're drunk the night before, because there are moments where, and I think it was coming from concern, right? Like you don't want him to be using again, but he very much was not. And I think
obviously.
This is the difference. And this is kind of what I said last summer too. I wanted Carl to come back into himself. Like he was so, you know, Zen Carl. He like, there would be an argument happening and he's just sitting there. I'm like, what are you doing? Like he was so calm. And now I feel like, you know, some time has gone by and he's coming back into his self.
Finding his voice.
Is like vintage Carl, like, you know, this very fun, charismatic, like person. And unfortunately that has kind of always been attached to his not sober self. And so I think that's where it was coming from. But the next morning, I think that conversation could have gone a completely different way. Like, listen, I'm so sorry that I questioned your sobriety, but this is what I was feeling at the time, because you were being very distant and we weren't on the same page. I think that he wanted to be one of the boys. He wanted to prove that he's fun and that he can carry on with the summer and have a good time. And she was just like, she was anxious, you know, she wasn't sure how.
The mentality of coming back in the house, of seeing you, of seeing the other girls. She's been shit on a lot of other seasons by them. That's got to add to the anxiety. And of course, like you said, Carl has that anxiety as well. But to then not communicate as the couple, I think now is starting to give us a little perspective on why we see what we're eventually going to see, which you then lived through not only in real life, but in the summer house. How is Lindsay right now? And how are you and Lindsay? Because that is one of the big questions with everything, because we know you were there for her, but like, are you still in a tentative relationship with her, or did you throw yourself fully back in?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be quite the sisterhood, but I think that we're in new great territory. Like we text all the time. We're very much back to being close to best friends.
Okay. I know. I like that, because I know what we're going to see is really painful. But also, I was reading an interview with Carl, says, you know, you guys saw each other at BravoCon, you've shared some texts. So is there a world in which you're able to get back to a good relationship with Carl? It might already be there. And how will that affect you and Lindsay? Is it a kind of Tom Sandoval thing of like, listen, if you have a relationship, I can't have a relationship with you?
I will be civil. I'll be cordial. I won't be, you know, a bitch to him. I won't like give him like a scally, like, you know, I will be as nice as possible, but I don't think I'll ever be like a friend to him.
Okay.
I'm someone who like, I'm good at drawing a line in the sand, and I'm team Lindsay on this one. So I think, you know, I'm happy for Lindsay. She's never been better. She's started an entirely new business. Like this to me.
She's in Nashville. She's in her country phase, just like Beyonce. She's in Nashville. I mean, I want her to be the best. I think we all do. But you also respect Carl's sobriety, and I love that. And, you know, you're civil, and that's how you should be. I know I only have 3 more minutes with you, so I got to ask like the horrible thing. Your old friend, Joe Bradley, was on a podcast, my buddy Gibson's recently, and he commented on your relationship. So I don't know if you would actually do me the honor of commenting on because you were dating potentially Joe Bradley from Southern Hospitality. There was all this craziness of Countess Luann. I don't know what is real or not real. I watched the reunion. They say there's 99% chance they hooked up. Where are you with that? Are you okay? Can you tell us anything about that?
I'm okay. I'm always going to be okay. That was, you know, that was a crazy love bomb of a situation. And what stunk about the podcast with Gibson Johns, and I'm talking to him later, but like I watched it and I was like, this man is lying through his teeth about everything except for how wonderful I am and how much I have my shit together. But we are not on good terms. We are not speaking, and we'll never be friends. So like, no, things ended in a bad way because of your behavior and because you know, you're a boy, not a man. So like, it's just, that infuriated me because he's creating this narrative and this persona. And I'm glad, you know, honestly, that he was outed on his own reunion. That was actually really exciting.
It is interesting. I mean, but it is interesting also you confirming that things did end on a bad note, because you were there supporting him. You were there at the Watch What Happens Live. You were there at the Brav Bros podcast. You were, you know, like, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is like another like cross show Mance that seems like it's potentially real. But then again, now you're in a place like Danielle, you can't trust these Bravo people. Don't date any more Bravo. Don't date any more Bravo. But if there were one person to date on Bravo, who would it be for you?
Maybe I switch teams. I don't know.
Oh my God. Season 9 of Summer House. Danielle switches teams. But you're okay. F Joe Bradley. We're saying it here. This is a podcast war now. We're doing it. But I want you to be okay. I want you to like fully step into the spotlight, but I'm glad to hear everything is potentially going well right now. What do we have coming up for you besides Summer House? You have the Dawn app, Donne. Yeah. I'm going to put all that information. I know there's a wait list that you can sign up for. Yeah, what else is going on?
We're getting people off the wait list, and we're also onboarding professionals onto the platform as well. It's really, really exciting. That is I'm laser focused on that.
Now this helps style you?
Yeah.
So this would actually, is it just girls or could somebody teach me how to dress?
It'll be for men as well in the future, but for right now, it's targeted to females.
Oh, damn, lost again. Wow. When are men going to get a leg up in this world? How dare, oh my gosh. Danielle Olivera, you are the best. I've been wanting this forever. I hope you'll come back at another time when we can talk a little bit more about everything and your past and stuff like that. Just really get into it deep like a therapist. But thank you. You're one of my favorites on Summer House, and I'm so glad you're doing good. Yeah. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.